The soft morning light spilled through the thin curtains of the small apartment on the outskirts of Madrid. Ana Gonzalez hummed quietly as she prepared breakfast, the familiar routine bringing comfort in otherwise uncertain times. Her husband Miguel had already left for his second job, determined to make ends meet for their little family of three. "Lucia?" Ana called out. "Breakfast is ready, sweetheart." 6-year-old Lucia appeared in the doorway, her dark curls framing her small face. Her eyes, once bright and curious, now moved without focus, searching for the source of her mother's voice. The rare eye condition had taken her sight gradually over the past year. The doctors helpless to stop its progression. "I'm here, Mama," Lucia said, her hand outstretched, feeling the air in front of her. Ana's heart squeezed painfully as it did each morning, watching her daughter navigate this new darkness. "Follow my voice, my brave girl," Ana encouraged, keeping her tone light despite the heaviness in her chest. Lucia moved carefully toward the kitchen table, her small fingers extended until they touched the familiar wooden chair. A smile of accomplishment brightened her face as she climbed onto it without help. "I did it myself," she announced proudly. "You did," Ana agreed, setting a plate of toast and eggs before her. She gently took Lucia's hand and guided it to the fork. "Your papa will be so proud when I tell him." After breakfast, Ana washed the dishes while Lucia sat on the living room floor, her fingers running over the pages of her picture books. Though she could no longer see the colorful illustrations, she remembered them vividly, creating stories based on the texture of the paper and the memories of images she once knew. "Mama, can we visit Tia Elena today?" Lucia asked suddenly. "She promised to let me hear her music box again." Ana dried her hands on a dish towel. Elena wasn't actually their aunt, but an old family friend who lived 3 floors down. She had taken a special interest in Lucia since the girl's diagnosis, offering support and friendship to the family when many others had drifted away. Uncomfortable with the reality of a child losing her sight. "That's a wonderful idea. I need to drop off these mended clothes to her anyway." An hour later, they stood outside Elena's door. The elderly woman welcomed them warmly, the scent of cinnamon and cloves following her from the kitchen. "My 2 favorite visitors," Elena exclaimed, bending down to hug Lucia. "I just made cookies. Perfect timing." Elena's apartment was small but cozy, filled with treasures from her long life. In the corner of her living room stood an old upright piano, its wood worn but well polished. "Can I listen to your music box now?" Lucia asked eagerly after they had settled with tea and cookies. "Of course, dear heart," Elena said, disappearing briefly into another room. She returned with an ornate wooden box, its lid inlaid with mother of pearl. She wound the mechanism and opened the lid. A delicate melody filled the air, the notes clear and sweet. Lucia listened, her head tilted slightly, a look of pure joy on her face. Her small fingers moved in her lap as if trying to catch the notes. "That's Mozart," Elena explained, "a famous composer from long ago. It sounds like sunshine through leaves," Lucia said thoughtfully. Elena glanced at Ana, both women surprised by the child's poetic description. "That's exactly what it sounds like," Elena agreed. "You have a wonderful ear for music." While the adults chatted in the kitchen afterward, Lucia asked to stay in the living room with the music box. Ana checked on her daughter every few minutes. But the conversation with Elena was a rare respite, a chance to share her worries with someone who truly understood. Nearly 20 minutes had passed when they realized the apartment had grown unusually quiet. The music box had stopped playing long ago. "Lucia," Ana called, a note of concern in her voice as she hurried to the living room. What she saw stopped her in her tracks. Lucia was sitting at Elena's piano, her small fingers moving across the keys with surprising purpose. A familiar melody filled the room, the very same tune from the music box but fuller, richer on the piano strings. "Elena," Ana gasped. "Come quickly." Elena appeared beside her, her eyes widening at the sight of the little blind girl playing her piano. Not just pressing random keys as a child might do for fun, but actually playing the Mozart melody they had heard earlier, adding harmonies that complemented the original tune. "Has she had lessons?" Elena whispered, astonished. Ana shook her head, unable to speak. Lucia had never touched a piano before in her life. The family couldn't afford such luxuries. Feeling their presence, Lucia stopped playing and turned toward them, uncertainty crossing her face. "Is it okay that I'm playing? I wanted to find the music box song." It's more than okay, Elena said, crossing the room to sit beside the child on the piano bench. How did you know which keys to press? Lucia shrugged, her fingers still resting on the ivory. I listened really hard to the music box. Then I just found the sounds here. They were waiting for me. She pressed a key, then another.
See, this one is bright like morning.
And this one is deep, like Papa's voice. Elena shot a meaningful look at Anna, whose hand had risen to cover her mouth. May I try something? Elena asked, receiving a nod from Anna. She played a simple folk song, one that had been playing on the radio just that week. She played it twice through while Lucia listened intently. Now you try, Elena encouraged. With only the slightest hesitation, Lucia began to play. Her small hands found the melody with an accuracy that seemed impossible. She stumbled once or twice but corrected herself immediately, her ear guiding her fingers to the right keys. By the time Lucia finished playing, tears were streaming down Anna's face. Elena looked equally moved. Anna, Elena said softly, your daughter has a rare gift. That evening, Anna couldn't wait to tell Miguel what had happened. She watched his expression change from exhaustion to disbelief to wonder as she described Lucia at the piano. But how? He asked, running a hand through his hair. We've never had a piano. She's never had lessons. Elena says some people are born with it, an ear for music that goes beyond normal hearing, and she thinks that when Lucia lost her sight, her ears might have become even more sensitive to make up for it. Miguel was silent for a long moment, thinking. But what does this mean for her, for us? We can barely afford her doctor visits. A piano? He shook his head, the impossibility hanging in the air between them. Anna reached for his hand. Elena has offered to let Lucia come play her piano whenever she wants. And there's more. She knows a music teacher at the community center who might be willing to give Lucia lessons for free if her talent is as special as Elena believes. For the first time in months, a new kind of hope flickered in their small apartment. Over the next few weeks, Lucia spent every possible moment at Elena's piano. The elderly woman watched in amazement as the child taught herself to play, her natural ability blossoming with each passing day. The music teacher from the community center came to evaluate Lucia and confirmed what they already knew. The little girl possessed extraordinary talent. In all my 30 years of teaching, he told Anna and Miguel, I have never seen a child with such natural ability, especially one who cannot see the keys. 6 months later, through a series of small miracles involving community donations and a crowdfunding campaign organized by Elena, a second-hand upright piano was delivered to the Gonzalez apartment. Lucia's fingers danced across the keys the moment it was tuned, her face alight with pure joy. It's singing just for me, she whispered, her unseeing eyes bright with tears. That night, after Lucia had finally been persuaded to leave her new piano and go to bed, Anna and Miguel sat together in the quiet living room, the instrument's presence changing the very feel of their humble home. What do you think will become of her? Miguel asked softly, his voice full of wonder and worry in equal measure. The world was not always kind to those who were different, those with disabilities. He knew this all too well. Anna leaned her head against his shoulder, considering the question. I don't know, she admitted. But today I saw something I haven't seen since she lost her sight. What's that? A future full of possibilities, not limitations. Anna squeezed his hand. The darkness didn't take everything from her. Maybe it even gave her something precious. Outside their window, the stars shone in the Madrid sky, unaware of the small miracle unfolding beneath them. A little girl who had found light in her darkness, whose fingers could translate what her heart heard into music that would one day make the whole world listen. 10 years passed like notes in a fast-paced symphony. Lucia was now 16, her childhood piano replaced by a better one donated by a local music school that had recognized her growing talent. Her small fingers had grown longer, stronger, more confident as they danced across the keys. Music had become her language, her way of seeing a world she could no longer view with her eyes. Again from the beginning, Rosa Vasquez said gently. Rosa had been Lucia's piano teacher for 8 years now, taking over when Elena's friend from the community center retired. What had begun as weekly lessons had evolved into daily sessions, Rosa's dedication to her student going far beyond professional obligation. Lucia nodded, her hands finding their starting position without hesitation. She began Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major, the notes flowing from her fingers like water over smooth stones. Her body swayed slightly with the music, feeling each crescendo and diminuendo as if they were waves lifting and lowering her. Rosa watched with quiet pride. She had taught many students in her 30-year career, but none like Lucia. The girl didn't just play the music, she lived inside it, understood it in a way that most musicians spent lifetimes trying to achieve. When Lucia finished, silence filled the practice room for several heartbeats. "Beautiful," Rosa finally said. "But the middle section," Lucia said immediately. "I rushed it," Rosa smiled. Lucia's ear was impeccable. "Yes, remember, this piece is like telling a secret. You don't rush a secret." Lucia played the section again, this time allowing the notes to breathe between her fingers. When she finished, Rosa placed a hand on her shoulder. "Perfect. Now I have something important to discuss with you." Lucia turned toward her teacher's voice, curiosity crossing her face. "What is it?" "The European Young Artist Competition is accepting applications for this year's program," Rosa said, trying to keep her voice casual even as excitement bubbled beneath her words. "It's held in Barcelona in 3 months." Lucia's hand stilled on the keyboard. "The competition? But isn't that for professional track musicians?" "Yes, musicians exactly like you." A small crease appeared between Lucia's eyebrows. "But I've never played outside of local recitals and the community center." "Because you haven't had the opportunity," Rosa countered. "Not because you lack the ability." Lucia bit her lip, uncertainty plain on her face. Rosa understood her hesitation. The competition was prestigious, attracting young talents from across Europe. Many went on to international careers after placing well. It was a far cry from the friendly community performances where Lucia had played until now. "The judges won't know I'm blind until I walk on stage," Lucia said quietly. "What if they think it's some kind of trick? Or worse, what if they feel sorry for me?" Rosa took Lucia's hands in hers. "Listen to me. Your talent speaks for itself. Yes, they will see that you cannot see, but the moment you start to play, all they will hear is your music." She squeezed the girl's hands. "Just think about it, okay?" That evening, Lucia sat at her piano at home, her fingers moving through scales automatically as her mind wandered through the possibility of the competition. She didn't hear her father come in until he spoke. "That doesn't sound like your usual playing," Miguel observed, setting down his work bag. "Something on your mind, Hummingbird?" Lucia smiled at the old nickname. "Rosa thinks I should enter a big competition." "In Barcelona? The European Young Artists?" Miguel asked, surprising her. "How did you know?" Miguel sat beside his daughter on the piano bench. "Rosa called us last week. She wanted to discuss it with your mother and me first." "And what did you say?" "We said it was your decision, but that we would support you either way." He paused. "Are you afraid?" Lucia's fingers found a minor chord, holding it softly. "Yes," she admitted. "What if I get up there and freeze? What if they laugh at me? What if you play beautifully and show everyone what we already know?" Miguel interrupted gently. "That you are extraordinary." Lucia leaned her head against her father's shoulder, drawing comfort from his solid presence. "The application requires a video performance," she said. "Rosa says she can help record it at the music school." "Then I think you have a video to prepare for," Miguel said simply. The next few weeks passed in a blur of practice sessions. Lucia selected Bach's Prelude in C major and Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata for her application pieces, one to demonstrate technical precision, the other to showcase emotional depth. Rosa recorded the performances, and together with Ana and Miguel, they submitted Lucia's application to the competition. A month later, the acceptance letter arrived. Lucia had been selected as one of 50 young musicians invited to the preliminary round in Barcelona. "We're going to Barcelona," Ana exclaimed, reading the letter aloud to her daughter. "Oh, Lucia, I'm so proud of you." "We need to book train tickets," Miguel said practically, though his voice too was thick with emotion. "And find somewhere to stay. The competition provides accommodations for contestants and one guardian," Ana read from the letter. "But we'll need to arrange something for whoever isn't staying with Lucia." "You should be the one to stay with her," Miguel said immediately to his wife. "I'll find a cheap hostel nearby." Lucia listened to her parents' planning with a mixture of excitement and terror coursing through her. It was really happening. She would be playing for real judges, professional musicians in a real competition. The thought made her stomach twist into knots. The weeks leading up to the competition were the most intense of Lucia's young life. She practiced for hours each day, Rosa pushing her harder than ever before. They refined every phrase, discussed every nuance, worked until Lucia's fingers ached and her back cramped from sitting at the piano. "You can do this," Rosa would tell her repeatedly. "Your music is a gift. Share it with confidence." The night before they left for Barcelona, Lucia couldn't sleep. She sat at her piano with the volume turned low, playing softly in the darkness, a darkness that had become so familiar to her that she rarely thought of it as darkness anymore. It was simply her world, one filled with sounds, textures, scents, and the emotions they evoked. "Lucia?" Her mother's voice came softly from the doorway. "It's very late, sweetheart, I know. I needed to play." Anna came to sit beside her daughter. "Are you nervous about tomorrow?" "Yes," Lucia admitted. "What if I'm not ready? What if I'm making a mistake?" "Do you remember when you first played Elena's piano? You were 6 years old and had never touched a piano before in your life." Lucia smiled at the memory. "A little. I remember the feeling more than anything, like I'd found something I didn't know I was looking for." "Elena told me something that day," Anna continued. "She said music wasn't in the piano, it was in you. The piano was just how you let it out." She took her daughter's hand. "The music is still in you, Lucia. It's been growing with you all these years. Tomorrow you're just going to let more people hear it." The journey to Barcelona the next day was a whirlwind of train connections and taxi rides. When they finally arrived at the grand old building where the competition was to be held, Lucia gripped her mother's arm tightly, suddenly overwhelmed by the unfamiliar surroundings. "Describe it to me," she whispered, a ritual they had developed over the years. "It's a beautiful old concert hall," Anna said, looking around. "High ceilings with ornate moldings, marble floors that echo when people walk. There's a grand staircase ahead of us with red carpet, and there are other young musicians everywhere, some with instrument cases, others with folders of sheet music." Lucia took a deep breath, organizing the space in her mind based on her mother's description and the sounds around her. The click of dress shoes on marble, the murmur of excited conversations in various languages, the occasional musical phrase as someone hummed nervously. At the registration desk, they received Lucia's contestant number and schedule. The preliminary round would begin the next morning, with Lucia set to perform at 11:45 a.m. "Contestant 23, the registration attendant said cheerfully. "Your performance will be evaluated by our panel of 5 judges, including our guest judge this year, Victor Krasny." Beside her, Lucia felt Rosa stiffen. "Is something wrong?" Lucia asked once they had moved away from the desk. "Victor Krasny is judging," Rosa said, her voice tight. He's a brilliant pianist and conductor, but he's known to be rather harsh in his assessments." "Harsh how?" Rosa hesitated. "Let's just say he doesn't believe in sugarcoating his opinions." That night in the hotel room she shared with her mother, Lucia lay awake listening to the unfamiliar sounds of the city. Barcelona hummed with a different rhythm than Madrid, faster, more urgent somehow. Or perhaps that was just her anxiety coloring her perception. "Play for yourself tomorrow," Anna had said before they went to bed. "Not for the judges, not for us, not even for Rosa. Play because the music is in you and needs to come out." Lucia held on to those words as she finally drifted to sleep, dreaming of pianos with keys that turned into stars under her fingers, filling a darkness with points of brilliant light. Morning arrived with golden light streaming through the hotel curtains and the distant sounds of Barcelona waking up. Lucia had been awake for hours already, her fingers moving in silent rehearsal against the bedsheet, playing through her competition pieces in her mind. "Are you hungry?" Anna asked, hearing her daughter stir. "We should get some breakfast before heading to the hall." "I don't think I can eat," Lucia admitted, her stomach tight with nerves. "But I'll try." They met Miguel and Rosa in the hotel restaurant. Rosa immediately launched into last-minute advice while Miguel quietly buttered toast for his daughter, placing it in her hand without interrupting the teacher's flow of words. "Remember to take a moment before you start playing," Rosa was saying. "Center yourself, feel the keys under your fingers, and breathe. The judges will be watching from the moment you walk on stage." Lucia nodded, taking a small bite of toast. The food felt dry in her mouth despite the butter, her throat constricting with anxiety. Most importantly, Rosa continued, her voice softening. Remember why you play. Not for scores or judges, but because music is your voice. They arrived at the competition hall 90 minutes before Lucia's scheduled performance time. The atmosphere had changed from the day before. Excitement had given way to tense concentration. Young musicians sat in corners with headphones, reviewing recordings or scores. Others paced, whispering to themselves or stretching their fingers. A volunteer led them to a small practice room where Lucia could warm up. The piano was different from what she was used to, a Steinway grand with a lighter touch than her piano at home. She spent several minutes simply getting acquainted with its feel, playing scales and arpeggios until her fingers adjusted to the new instrument. Contestant number 23. Lucia Gonzalez, a voice announced over the intercom. Please report to the backstage area in 15 minutes. Reality crashed over Lucia like a cold wave. This was happening. Right now, she felt her heart racing, her palms growing damp. Deep breaths, Rosa reminded her, placing a hand on her shoulder. Your hands know what to do. Trust them. In the backstage area, Lucia could hear the faint sounds of another contestant playing, quick, confident notes of a Chopin etude. She tried not to listen too closely, not wanting to compare herself to the other musicians. Miguel knelt in front of his daughter. Remember when you were 7 and you played at the community center for the first time? He asked. Lucia nodded, smiling despite her nerves. I was so scared I almost ran off stage. But you didn't, Miguel reminded her. You played beautifully, just like you will today. Contestant 23, please prepare to enter, a stagehand announced. Anna squeezed Lucia's hand. We'll be right here waiting for you. Your father and I are so proud of you no matter what happens. Rosa adjusted Lucia's collar one last time. Remember, let the music breathe. And smile when you bow, the stagehand returned. Ready, miss? I'll guide you to the piano. Lucia nodded, unfolding her white cane. She could hear the audience murmuring as she was led onto the stage, feel the sudden openness of the space around her, sense the expectant silence that fell as she was introduced. Our next contestant is Lucia Gonzalez from Madrid, Spain. She will be performing Bach's Prelude in C major, followed by the first movement of Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. The stagehand guided her to the piano bench and whispered, The piano is directly in front of you. Good luck. Lucia thanked her quietly, folding her cane and setting it beside her. She found the keys, placing her fingers in position. The audience was completely silent now, watching. She could feel their attention like a physical weight. For a moment, panic threatened to overwhelm her. What if she made a mistake? What if she forgot the notes? What if they judged her differently because she couldn't see? Then from somewhere deep inside, she heard her mother's voice from the night before. Play for yourself. Lucia took a deep breath and began to play. The Bach flowed from her fingers with crystalline clarity, each note precise and deliberate. As she played, the world around her, the audience, the judges, even her own anxiety fell away. There was only the music, speaking through her hands. When she transitioned to the Beethoven, she allowed herself to sink deeper into the emotional landscape of the piece. The sonata's haunting melody filled the hall, her interpretation bringing out nuances that made the familiar piece sound fresh and intimate. Every crescendo and diminuendo came from a place of genuine feeling, rather than technical calculation. As the final notes faded, Lucia remained still for a moment, allowing the silence to complete the music. Then, remembering Rosa's instruction, she stood and gave a small, graceful bow toward where she knew the audience would be. The applause that followed was enthusiastic, with a few audible bravos scattered throughout. Lucia bowed again, her heart pounding with relief and lingering adrenaline. The stagehand returned to guide her off stage, where her parents and Rosa waited. You were magnificent, Rosa whispered, embracing her. Absolutely magnificent. Anna was crying too hard to speak, simply holding her daughter close. Miguel kept patting Lucia's shoulder, words failing him as well. Did the judges say anything? Lucia asked when she could finally speak. Did you see their faces? There was an uncomfortable pause before Rosa answered. 4 of the judges were very engaged. They were watching closely, making notes. They seemed impressed. And the 5th? Krasny. Another pause. He didn't show much reaction. Before Lucia could ask more questions, the backstage coordinator approached them. The preliminary results will be posted in 2 hours, she informed them. Please feel free to leave and return, or you can wait in the common area. They decided to get lunch at a small cafe across from the concert hall. Lucia found she was suddenly starving, the tension of the morning having burned through all her energy reserves. As they ate, Rosa and her parents carefully steered the conversation away from the competition, talking instead about the sounds and smells of Barcelona, describing the architecture of the buildings they passed, the expressions of people at nearby tables. By the time they returned to the hall, Lucia felt calmer, the anxiety of performance replaced by a quiet acceptance of whatever would come next. A crowd had gathered around the results board. Miguel pushed through gently, scanning for Lucia's name. Ana and Rosa stood on either side of Lucia, each holding one of her hands. "I see it." Miguel called back to them, his voice rising with excitement. "Lucia Gonzalez advancing to the semifinals." Joy erupted around her. Rosa clapped her hands together. Ana burst into fresh tears, and Miguel returned to lift his daughter off her feet in a jubilant hug. "You're moving on, Hummingbird," he said. "You're one of 15 selected to continue." Lucia could hardly believe it. Out of 50 contestants, she had made it to the next round. The semifinals would take place the following day, with the 10 finalists announced that evening. As the excitement began to settle, a sharp voice cut through the celebratory atmosphere around them. "Excuse me, Miss Gonzalez?" They turned toward the voice. A woman with clipped, efficient tones introduced herself as Mr. Krasny's assistant. "Mr. Krasny would like a word with you before you leave today," she said. "If you would follow me, please." Lucia felt her mother stiffen beside her. "I'll come with my daughter," Ana said firmly. "Of course," the assistant replied. "This way, please." They were led to a small office off the main hallway. Lucia could hear someone moving papers around inside before they entered. "Miss Gonzalez," a man's voice said as they stepped inside. The voice was deep, heavily accented, and somehow both melodic and harsh at once. "Please, sit down." Lucia felt for the chair offered and sat, her mother remaining standing protectively behind her. "I observed your performance with great interest," Victor Krasny said. There was a pause, during which Lucia imagined him studying her. "Tell me, how long have you been blind?" The bluntness of the question startled her. "Since I was 6, she answered. "And when did you begin playing piano?" "The same year, I see." There was the sound of a chair creaking as he leaned back. "Your Bach was technically proficient. Your Beethoven showed promise." Lucia waited for more, but there was only silence. "Thank you," she finally said, unsure what response was expected. "For the semifinals," Krasny continued, as if there had been no pause, "you will need to prepare Chopin's Nocturne in C minor. Are you familiar with it?" "Yes, sir. I've studied it." "Good. Because I have questions about your interpretation." His tone sharpened. "I wonder, Miss Gonzalez, if your disability has caused people to be overly generous in their assessment of your abilities." Behind her, Lucia heard her mother inhale sharply. Lucia herself felt as if she'd been slapped. "I don't understand," she said, her voice smaller than she intended. "To advance in this competition requires more than sympathy points," Krasny said coldly. "The judges must be objective. I simply wonder if others have failed to be honest with you about the limits of your talent due to reluctance to discourage someone in your condition." The words hung in the air like poison. Lucia sat very still, her mind reeling. Before she could formulate a response, her mother spoke. "Mr. Krasny," Ana said, her voice tight with controlled anger. "My daughter has earned her place in this competition through years of dedicated practice and natural ability. If you have specific musical criticisms, we welcome them. But questions about sympathy points are neither appropriate nor professional." There was a long silence, during which Lucia imagined Krasny and her mother locked in a silent battle of wills. Finally, he said, "Very well. Prepare the Chopin. Tomorrow we will see if your playing speaks for itself." As they left the office, Lucia's legs felt wooden, her heart hammering painfully in her chest. Once they were safely away, she stopped walking. "Mama," she whispered, "what if he's right?" "What if he's right?" Lucia's question hung in the air between her and her mother, as they stood in the hallway outside Krasny's office. Ana took her daughter's shoulders firmly. "Listen to me," she said, her voice low and intense. "That man knows nothing about you or your journey. He made a snap judgment based on what he saw, not what he heard." Lucia shook her head, unconvinced. "But what if everyone has been too nice to tell me the truth? What if I'm not actually good enough? Anna was about to respond when Miguel and Rosa found them. One look at their faces told them something had happened. What did he say to her? Rosa demanded, seeing Lucia's distress. They moved to a quiet corner of the lobby where Anna quickly relayed Krasny's comments. Rosa's face flushed with anger while Miguel's hands clenched into fists at his sides. That arrogant, prejudiced, Rosa began, then caught herself taking a deep breath. Lucia, Victor Krasny is known for trying to rattle young musicians. He believes that true talent survives pressure. She took Lucia's hand, but what he said was cruel and wrong. You earned your place here. The other judges saw that. He wants me to prepare Chopin's Nocturne in C minor for tomorrow, Lucia said quietly. Rosa nodded. Then that's what we'll do. We'll show him exactly what you're capable of. They returned to the hotel, where Rosa had arranged for a practice room with a piano. For the next few hours, Lucia worked on the Chopin piece. Though she knew it well, she now approached it with a new intensity, as if each note were a statement of defiance. But as the afternoon wore on, Lucia's playing became increasingly mechanical. The musicality that usually flowed so naturally from her seemed blocked, replaced by a rigid perfectionism as she tried to make each note technically flawless. Stop, Rosa finally said after Lucia had played the same passage for the 10th time without improvement. What's happening right now? Lucia's hands fell to her lap. I don't know. It doesn't feel right. Because you're playing for him, Rosa said gently. You're trying to prove something to Krasny instead of expressing what the music means to you. Lucia bit her lip. I can't help it. His words keep echoing in my head. Rosa was quiet for a moment, considering. May I tell you a story? About when I was a young pianist? Yes, please, Lucia said, grateful for the break. I was about your age, playing in my first major competition in Madrid. One of the judges was a famous concert pianist who had trained with the great Russian masters. I was terrified of disappointing him. Rosa's voice took on a wistful quality. After my performance, he called me aside, and do you know what he said? Lucia shook her head. He said, "Young lady, you played all the correct notes. Unfortunately, you played nothing else." He meant I had focused so much on technical perfection that I had forgotten to bring the music to life. Rosa placed her hand over Lucia's. Don't make my mistake. Technique without heart is just noise. Back in their hotel room that evening, Lucia lay on her bed, exhausted but unable to sleep. Her father had gone out to find dinner for them all, and her mother was in the shower. For the first time all day, Lucia was alone with her thoughts. Krasny's words had cut deep, touching on fears she had never fully acknowledged. How much of the praise she'd received over the years was genuine? How much was simply people being kind to the blind girl who played piano? She turned these questions over in her mind until she heard her father return. The familiar sound of his footsteps and the scent of the food he'd brought grounded her somehow. "Papa," she said when he set a plate beside her, "can I ask you something?" "Anything, Hummingbird. Have you and Mama ever pretended I was better at piano than I really am? Because you didn't want to hurt my feelings?" Miguel was silent for so long that Lucia wondered if he was searching for a kind way to confirm her fears. "No," he finally said, his voice rough with emotion. "Never. In fact, sometimes I've wondered if we've been too hard on you, expecting so much because we knew what you were capable of." He sat on the edge of the bed. "Lucia, do you remember Señor Cardenas?" Lucia nodded. Señor Cardenas had been the toughest music critic in their hometown, known for his scathing reviews of even established musicians. When you played at the Cultural Center for the first time, he wrote that you had a rare gift that transcends technical proficiency, the ability to make the audience feel the music as deeply as she does. He had no reason to be kind. He didn't know us. He simply recognized what was true. Lucia absorbed this, some of the tightness in her chest easing. "People will always have opinions," Miguel continued. "Some will be fair, others won't. But your music comes from a place no one can touch. Not with praise, not with criticism. Remember that tomorrow." The next morning dawned clear and cool. Lucia woke early again, but this time, instead of practicing mentally, she sat by the window, feeling the sun on her face and listening to Barcelona wake up. She thought about what her father and Rosa had said, about playing from the heart, about where her music truly came from. When it was time to leave for the competition hall, she felt different, not confident exactly, but centered in a way she hadn't been the day before. The semi-final round was structured differently. Each contestant would perform their assigned piece, followed by an impromptu piece they would be given just 5 minutes to prepare mentally before playing. This was designed to test not just technical skill and rehearsed performances, but adaptability and innate musicality. As Lucia waited backstage for her turn, she overheard other contestants discussing Krasny. He told Gabriella her dynamics were childishly exaggerated. One voice whispered. Pietro said Krasny asked if he'd learned piano from a textbook or an actual teacher, another added. So Lucia wasn't the only one Krasny had targeted. The knowledge shouldn't have made her feel better, but somehow it did. His cruelty wasn't personal. It was just who he was. When her name was called, Lucia walked onto the stage with her head high, guided by the same stagehand as before. She could sense the audience was larger today, the energy in the hall more focused. The stakes were higher. She seated herself at the piano, took a moment to gather herself as Rosa had taught her, and began the nocturne. The piece opened with a melancholy theme that had always reminded Lucia of someone walking alone in the rain. As she played, she thought about her journey, the darkness that had come when she was 6, the light that had followed when she found music. She thought about her parents' sacrifices, Rosa's belief in her, Elena's early encouragement. She poured all of it into the music, not playing for Krasny or the judges or even the audience, but for herself and for the truth of what the music meant to her. When she finished, the applause was immediate and warm. She barely had time to acknowledge it before the head judge spoke. "Thank you, Miss Gonzalez. Now for your impromptu piece." When there was a rustle of papers. "You will play Debussy's Clair de Lune, beginning at the 3rd movement. You have 5 minutes to prepare mentally before you perform." Lucia's heart jumped. She knew the piece well. It was one of her favorites. But the 3rd movement was technically challenging with its flowing arpeggios and delicate phrasing. She used the 5 minutes to visualize the music, her fingers moving slightly in her lap as she traced the patterns she would soon play. When the judge announced her time was up, she took a deep breath and placed her hands on the keys. The first notes filled the hall, shimmering like moonlight on water. Exactly what Debussy had intended. Lucia leaned into the music, allowing it to carry her. Her fingers found each note with precision, but it was more than technical accuracy that made the piece come alive. It was the way she shaped each phrase, the subtle rubato that made the music breathe, the dynamics that rose and fell like gentle waves. When the final notes faded, the hall was silent for a heartbeat before erupting into the loudest applause Lucia had heard yet. Someone shouted, "Brava!" from the balcony, followed by others joining in. As the stagehand helped her from the stage, Lucia felt lightheaded with relief and leftover adrenaline. Her parents and Rosa surrounded her immediately. "That was beyond beautiful," Rosa whispered fiercely. "You didn't just play the music, you became it." Ana was crying again, and Miguel kept saying, "My girl, my amazing girl," over and over. They waited through the remaining performances, Lucia listening with genuine appreciation to the other young musicians. Every one of them was talented. Making it to the finals would be an incredible achievement. When all the semi-finalists had performed, there was a 30-minute deliberation period while the judges made their decisions. The tension in the hall was palpable as everyone waited. Finally, the competition director stepped onto the stage. "After careful consideration, our judges have selected the following contestants to advance to tomorrow's final round." Names were called one by one. With each name that wasn't hers, Lucia felt her hopes dim a little. Had she misread the audience's response? Had Krasny swayed the other judges against her? Contestant number 23, Lucia Gonzalez. Joy burst through her like sunshine through clouds. She had done it. She was going to the finals. As the excitement swirled around her, a voice cut through the celebrations. The now familiar crisp tones of Krasny's assistant. "Miss Gonzalez, Mr. Krasny would like another word with you." "Mr. Krasny would like another word with you." The assistant's word sent a chill through Lucia's moment of triumph. Ana immediately stepped closer to her daughter, protective as a lioness. "We'll come with you," Rosa said firmly, her tone making it clear this wasn't a request. This time they were led to a different room, larger, with the distinctive acoustics of a small rehearsal space. Lucia could hear the subtle echo as Krasny rose from what must have been a piano bench when they entered. Congratulations, Miss Gonzalez, he said, his voice giving away nothing of his thoughts. Please sit down. All of you. There was a scraping of chairs as everyone settled. Lucia could feel the tension radiating from her mother and Rosa. I observed your performance with great interest, Krasny said, echoing his words from the day before. Particularly your Debussy. Lucia waited, bracing herself for criticism. You play from somewhere deep, he continued, surprising her. Somewhere most musicians spend their lives trying to reach. There was a pause. The question is whether you understand what you have. I'm not sure I follow, sir, Lucia said cautiously. The other finalists have been training since they could walk. They have attended master classes with the world's greatest pianists. They have performed internationally. What they haven't done, his voice dropped slightly, is find their authentic voice. They play beautifully, but they play as they have been taught. Lucia felt Rosa shift beside her, clearly surprised by Krasny's assessment. For tomorrow's final round, Krasny continued, you may choose your own piece. This was unexpected. The other finalists would be playing pieces assigned by the judges. Any particular reason for this exception? Miguel asked, suspicion evident in his tone. It is not an exception. It is a challenge. Krasny's chair creaked as he leaned forward. Miss Gonzalez, I want you to play something that tells us who you are. Not your technical ability, not your memory, not your training. Your essence. Lucia felt a strange mix of emotions, confusion, wariness, but also a flicker of something like excitement. Why? She asked simply. For several heartbeats, Krasny was silent. When he spoke again, his voice had changed, become less formal, more human. Because when I first saw you walk on stage, I made a judgment. I assumed your advancement was a matter of pity or novelty. He cleared his throat. I was wrong. But I need to know if you understand what makes your playing special. Back at the hotel, long after Rosa had left them for the night, Lucia sat on the edge of her bed, deep in thought. What are you thinking, Hummingbird? Miguel asked, sitting beside her. I'm trying to decide what to play tomorrow. And? Lucia hesitated. I'm thinking about playing my own composition. Anna, who had been unpacking some clean clothes, stopped. Your composition? The one you've been working on since last year? Lucia nodded. She had been composing on and off since she was 12, but had never performed her own work publicly. This particular piece had evolved over many months, starting as a simple melody that came to her one night and growing into something more complex and personal. Is it finished? Miguel asked. Almost. There's a section in the middle that's never felt quite right. Lucia's fingers moved in the air, playing invisible keys. But I think I know how to fix it now. Wouldn't it be safer to play something established? Anna suggested gently. Something you've performed before? Lucia considered this. Maybe. But that's not what Krasny challenged me to do, is it? He wants to know who I am. She took a deep breath. And I want to know too. Early the next morning, before the rest of the hotel was awake, Lucia sat at the piano in the practice room, putting the finishing touches on her composition. The piece had no formal title, though in her mind she called it Light Through Darkness. It traced her journey from the confusion and fear of losing her sight to the discovery of music as a new way of seeing the world. Rosa found her there at 7 o'clock, surprised to learn of Lucia's decision. Your own composition? She repeated. Are you certain? The judges will be expecting a classical piece. I know it's a risk, Lucia acknowledged, but it feels right. Rosa was quiet for a moment, then asked Lucia to play the piece for her. As the music filled the small room, Rosa listened intently, her expression changing from concern to wonder. When Lucia finished, there were tears in the teacher's eyes. Play that, she said simply, just like that. The day of the finals arrived with a buzz of excitement throughout the competition hall. Only 5 young musicians remained from the original, 50, each scheduled to perform for 15 minutes. As the third performer, Lucia had time to listen to the first 2 finalists, a young man from Italy who played Liszt with fiery precision, and a girl from Germany whose Bach was mathematically perfect. Both received enthusiastic applause. Both were technically flawless. Both, Lucia realized, sounded exactly as one would expect those pieces to sound. Beautiful, but somehow predictable. When it was her turn, Lucia took a few moments to center herself at the piano, her hands resting lightly on the keys. The audience waited in curious silence. They had been expecting her to play Rachmaninoff as listed in the program. The head judge had already announced the change to an original composition by the performer, causing a ripple of whispers through the hall. Lucia began softly, with a simple, almost childlike melody in the upper register, representing the world as she had known it before losing her sight. Gradually, lower notes entered, creating shadows and uncertainty. The piece moved into a minor key as the melody fragmented, lost among dissonant chords, the fear and confusion of her darkening world. Then, almost imperceptibly at first, a new theme emerged from the chaos, hesitant, questioning, but growing stronger. Her discovery of music, of the piano, of a new way to experience beauty. This theme developed, becoming more complex, interweaving with elements of the opening melody, transforming them. The middle section, the part she had struggled with, flowed from her fingers with newfound clarity. It represented her journey to this very stage, the doubts, the hard work, the encouragement of those who believed in her, even the harsh words that had almost derailed her. As the piece built toward its conclusion, both themes came together in a way that was neither purely major nor minor, but something more nuanced. Joy intertwined with loss, challenge with triumph. The final notes weren't loud or dramatic, but clear and resonant, hanging in the air like a question answered. For several long seconds after she finished, the hall was completely silent. Lucia sat still, suddenly uncertain. Had her risk failed? Had she misjudged what Krasny meant by showing her true self? Then someone in the balcony began to clap. Another person joined in, and another, until the entire hall erupted in applause that seemed to go on and on. Lucia stood, deeply moved, and bowed toward the sound. As she was escorted off stage, she could feel the energy in the room still vibrating with her music. Rosa was waiting, speechless with emotion. Her parents enveloped her in a tight hug, both of them trying to speak at once. "Did I do okay?" Lucia whispered, still needing their reassurance. "My darling girl," Anna said, her voice breaking. "You did far more than okay." The remaining two finalists performed brilliantly as well, one playing Chopin, the other Mozart. The audience appreciated both, but there was a different quality to their applause than what had followed Lucia's piece. After all five had performed, the judges retired to deliberate. The waiting seemed endless, the minutes stretching like hours as tension built in the hall. Finally, the competition director returned to the stage carrying an envelope. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, "the judges have made their decision." He opened the envelope with deliberate slowness. The third-place winner of the European Young Artist competition is Anton Petrovich from Russia. The young man who had played Mozart stepped forward to accept his award, smiling politely as the audience applauded. The second-place winner is Katharina Müller from Germany. The girl who had played Bach with such precision stepped forward, looking slightly disappointed but maintaining her composure. And the first-place winner, by unanimous decision of our judges, is Lucia Gonzalez from Spain. The hall erupted. Lucia sat frozen in disbelief until Rosa nudged her gently. "Go on," she whispered. "Go claim your victory." With the stage hand guiding her, Lucia approached the front of the stage. The competition director placed a medal around her neck and pressed an envelope into her hands. "Congratulations," he said warmly. "The judges were deeply moved by your performance." As the applause continued, someone else approached, footsteps Lucia now recognized. "Miss Gonzalez," Victor Krasny said, his voice carrying through the microphone he must have been holding. "On behalf of the judges, I want to say that your performance today reminded us all why we dedicate our lives to music." He paused. And when he spoke again, his voice was different, humbler, more human. "I must also offer you an apology. When you first walked onto this stage, I made assumptions based on what I saw rather than what I heard. I was wrong. and in being wrong I nearly discouraged a remarkable talent. The audience was silent now, listening intently. You asked me yesterday why I challenged you differently from the other contestants, Krasny continued. The truth is that I heard something in your playing from the beginning, something rare and genuine, but I doubted it because of my own prejudice. Today you proved beyond any doubt that true music comes not from the eyes but from the heart and soul. Krasny turned to address the entire hall. Ladies and gentlemen, remember the name Lucia Gonzalez. Today we have witnessed the birth of an exceptional artist. Later that evening, as Lucia and her family celebrated quietly in their hotel room, a knock came at their door. It was the competition coordinator, bringing news that nearly overshadowed even her victory. The National Symphony has requested that you perform your composition at their autumn gala, she told Lucia excitedly. And 3 conservatories have already expressed interest in offering you scholarships. As the woman listed more opportunities now opening before her, Lucia sat in quiet amazement. Just days ago she had questioned whether her music was special at all. Now it seemed that same music was opening doors she had never imagined possible. When the coordinator finally left, Miguel raised his glass in a toast. To my daughter, he said, who taught the world that the most beautiful sights can be seen even in darkness. Lucia smiled, touching her glass to his. And to music, she added, which helped me find my way back to the light.